Haitian child there is glory, and the kind of love that words cannot explain. The eyes of a Haitian child tell a story filled with beauty and with pain.
Look into the faces of Haiti. Look into the eyes of the children. You probably already know that Haiti is a very poor nation. The country is faced with nearly 60% unemployment. Even if you're lucky enough to have a job, the average worker makes less than $5 per day. 80% live below the international poverty line. It is hard to believe that a country fewer than 600 miles from the United States can be so poor. But what you may not know is that the faces of Haiti now mirror some hope. Thanks to the generosity of hundreds of people like you and the work of Kindred Journey, an outreach to Haiti based in Ebensburg, Pennsylvania. Kindred Journey was founded in 1989. The name Kindred Journey is meant to stir up images of like-minded people, very much like a family, making a journey together. In this case, the goal of the journey is the journey itself, a pilgrimage, if you will, toward restoring personal dignity, self-respect, and self-sufficiency for Haitian peasants. Monsignor Arnold Gauss is the founder of Kindred Journey, and he, along with Brother Franklin Armand and Kindred Journey's board of directors, makes sure all donations are applied to projects that have a positive and direct impact on the poor.
Brother Franklin is perchance the holiest person I've ever met in my life. So I, in my friendship with him, am absolutely determined that this is the best approach to use so that when he says there is a specific need, that I can respond to that specific need coming from the mouth of Brother Franklin Armand.
Kindred Journey works because it is a true charity. Virtually 100% of the money donated to Kindred Journey goes directly to Haiti's poor. And it works because of an effective program implementation system for the donations within Haiti, headed up by Brother Franklin, founder of the Little Brothers of the Incarnation, a religious order based in Haiti. "200 years ago, Haiti was a tropical paradise, but over time the quality of life in that country has consistently eroded. In fact, Brother Franklin frequently talks about the 4 erosions affecting Haiti: environmental, economic, intellectual, and spiritual. Each of these erosions or problem areas is being addressed by monies donated through Kindred Journey. For over 20 years, Kindred Journey has worked to address these 4 erosions. The organization's attention has been concentrated on providing very basic needs for the peasants: food and water. Because Kindred Journey's objective is to make the peasants self-sustaining, programs are designed to help them raise their own food. But you can't raise food without water, and fresh water is often a luxury in Haiti, so construction of water sources and water distribution is a key Kindred Journey focus.
In a country that faces daily food shortages, lakes are wealth.
Most of us probably take water and lakes for granted and do not consider how vitally important they are, especially to a country that experiences 6 months of torrential rains followed by 6 months of drought each year. Lakes retain the soil, allow for year-round cultivation of crops, feed the livestock, supply fresh fish for food and trade, and generally improve living conditions for peasants. In essence, they are critical to maintaining quality of life. Now that 100 lakes have been constructed in Haiti, wildlife is coming back to the area. The next step is to get the water to those in need. But the lakes and the pumping systems to distribute the water are expensive. Brother Franklin has set a goal of building 300 lakes to help the people of Haiti. He can only build these lakes with your support.
A country's future is found in its children, and Brother Franklin frequently says, you can measure the greatness of any society by the way it values its children.
When Kindred Journey began, its immediate objective was very simple: feed the children. And over 20 years later, feeding programs sponsored by Kindred Journey help sustain some 4,000 Haitian girls and boys in the Central Plateau region, and is still the charity's priority. Many of these feeding programs are now operated in schools, so the children receive both food for life and food for the mind. The hope is that with the proper general and/or technical training, young people eventually will become self-sufficient and able to provide for themselves and their families. However, the government and local community simply are without the funds to help with the feeding programs, and any natural disaster, like a hurricane or flood, increases food shortages within Haiti, and children are the first to suffer the consequences. Kindred Journey has a solid record of success in Haiti. In addition to the thousands of children it helps to feed each day, Kindred Journey has been working hard to upgrade the economic infrastructure in central Haiti to help the peasants become more self-sustaining. The Lakes Project is a vital element in this plan, but even with water now available on a year-round basis, irrigating fields by hand severely limits the amount of acreage to be cultivated. Now, monies from Kindred Journey are being used to provide large diesel pumps that can transport the lake water over greater distances, allowing significantly more land to be irrigated. And beef and fresh fish can now be taken to market because of refrigeration units supplied by generous Kindred Journey benefactors. A basic livestock scale was even shipped to Haiti to ensure that the peasants are paid fairly for the cattle, goats, and pigs they bring to market.
Our desire is to make sure that the progress that has begun, that it perhaps at this point in time may only be in its initial stages. If you build another 50 lakes and supply another 50 pumps, can you imagine how many more thousands of people are going to be fed?
Haitian peasants are hopeful people. Although they are among the poorest of the poor in the Western Hemisphere, they continue to try to fight the erosions wearing away at both the country and its people. They cannot win this battle on their own. Fortunately, because many caring individuals like you already have signed on to help, Haitians have more reason for hope now than ever. Despite Kindred Journey's many accomplishments, there is much more to be done. Your tax-deductible donations will support the construction of lakes and water distribution systems, in-school feeding programs, the nutrition centers for children and young mothers, and the centers for the most desperate, the street children. Your support makes possible the greatest gift of all, the gift of hope.
The eyes of a Haitian child spoke right to me, with compassion and with goodness from above. The eyes of a Haitian child forced me to see the epitome of living must be love. The epitome of living must be love. It must be love.